Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios, this is Football at 4.
And Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. It's brought to you by East Coast Roofing, Siding, Windows, serving all of South Jersey. If you call, they'll show up online at eastcoastroofing.com. Mike Gill with you. Geoff Mosher in the house today. We'll talk to him a little birds. I want to get into the conversation Ryan and I were having last hour. The Eagles won 9 games last year. Is it a fait accompli that they should just win more games this year because they have a better roster? Is it that simple? Better team, more wins? How big of a factor is Jalen Hurts? Look, Jalen Hurts won 9 games last year as the quarterback of this team. Now, did they win all those games because of Jalen Hurts? How many games can we look back on from last year and say, yeah, they won because of Jalen Hurts? Like that game, they won that game because Jalen Hurts was excellent in that game. Couple of them, right? I mean, I'm not saying all of them, but we can discernibly say the first game of the season against the Atlanta Falcons, they won that game, and Jalen Hurts had a big game, right? How many jersey sales did Jalen have after that? So let's bring Geoff Mosher into the conversation. It's something that we talked about in the last hour here, Moshe, which was, the Eagles won 9 games last year. And, I was asked a question the other day about the ceiling of Jalen Hurts. I said, the ceiling for me is that you can win a lot of games with Jalen Hurts, to which we kind of got into, does that necessarily mean you win more than 9 games automatically this year? I said, well, the roster is better. So to you, is it like a fait accompli that they should win more than 9 games because the roster's better, or is there other variables here that you're looking into?
No, it's not a fait accompli. I say all the time in the NFL, especially for teams that don't have kind of that Brady or that Rodgers, someone who, when you're sort of lacking in that all-pro caliber quarterback, that those teams know they're going to win 10 to 12 a year just on quarterback alone. But progress in the NFL isn't always linear. So just because the Eagles went from 4 to 9 and then added better players doesn't mean they're going to go from 9 to 10, 11, 12, 13, or anything more. There's always injuries. There's always scheduling. There's just a ton of factors that go health, which I guess goes with injury. But there are just a ton of factors. Improvement from the teams within your own division and on the teams that you play. How many times you've now seen a team, for example, they're going to play the Lions in the season opener. I think the Eagles should be favored. I expect that they will win the game, but that will be the second year in a row that the Lions are now game planning for the Eagles and have seen Jalen Hurts. So there are a lot of variables and a lot of factors. I do think it's a better roster than they ended last year with. But to be fair, Mike, were they a 9-win team because they had 9-win talent last year, or was it because the last 5 or 6 games they played, a bunch of teams that were either on first-year quarterbacks, struggling quarterbacks, backup quarterbacks, or COVID-ridden teams? That factors into it too.
That's a very, astute and fair point. Is that, hey, and a lot of people look at the schedule this year and say, well, it's an actually weaker schedule. But as Adam and I have been kind of talking about, that NFC East probably is not going to be as easy to pick up wins. You're probably I don't know, are you sweeping Washington? Are you sweeping the Giants as easily this time around? Probably not.
Right. And it's a great time to bring this up because on tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. on Inside the Birds, we start our annual series that we do looking at the NFC East with Greg Cosell. So he'll be on with us for 4 straight podcasts, and we'll do all 4 NFC East teams, ending with the Eagles. I believe the first one is Dallas. And, it's while we were doing the podcasts, I made the point, and Adam and Greg both agreed that while there are still some major question marks about the Giants and Washington, and their depth is very much an issue for both those teams, the fact that one team has a new coach, the other team has a new quarterback and some new weapons, and that they were kind of a laughing stock from a record standpoint the last few years, that doesn't stick around forever. They've both added a lot of talent, and I think there's a lot of optimism about the new coaching staff with the Giants. So I don't think that, first of all, the Giants beat the Eagles once out of 2 times last year. But to me, even though this might still not be a very strong division compared to the others. I don't think the NFC East is a laughing stock division anymore. I think it will be more competitive than it's been, and it's always competitive within the 4 teams. I mean, the Eagles, I think, were losing to Washington at halftime, right? In that last game, and had to come back and win it. And Heineke was intercepted on the last play of the game there, and in the second game, or else that, who knows what would have happened there. But they're always close games to begin with. And like I said, the Giants beat the Eagles last year, despite being far inferior of a team. But now I think this division has more juice to be competitive.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Now, I say, look, the Eagles won 9 games last year. The roster's better. How much better is the roster? Is it – because I say they won 9 last year. They should win – they should win 10, right? You would think this roster's 1 game better, at the least.
Again, well – you're operating off of a last year's schedule and everything that happened last year, and a wonderfully healthy season, which you have to hope the Eagles can do again. I mean, they had some terribly unhealthy seasons prior to that, and last year they did stay healthy for the most part. Obviously, they lost Brandon Graham and Sayamalu, so it wasn't like 100% health, but for the most part, some of the most important players, Devontae Smith, Darius Slay, Fletcher Cox, they stayed healthy. Jason Kelsey. So you have to hope that happens again. But and again, you're only as good as your health that week of the opponent that you play. I'm sure there are a couple of teams they played last year that wish that they either didn't have weren't COVID stricken or had some of their better players on the field. I mean, New Orleans was rolling, and then all of a sudden they're on Trevor Siemian, at quarterback. I imagine that they would have liked to have had a different scenario in that game. Just depends on who you play in that week. But overall, to answer your question, yeah, they got better. Clearly, their wide receiver group is better. Their offensive line was very strong. I don't know how much stronger it can get. The tight end group is the same. The cornerbacks group clearly got better when you go from Steve Nelson to James Bradbury. It looks like the linebacker group should be better. So, again, better team, yes, but what kind of schedule are you playing? Because a lot of teams you're playing now, they might be better than they were last year.
Geoff Mosher, InsideTheBirds.com, the Inside the Birds podcast. And another thing, you just brought up the fact that, the Eagles, they split with the Giants. They swept the Washington Commanders that we had talked about. Generally, you split with the 2 teams, and the Washington series has been a sweep. I think Adam mentioned almost every single year going back to 2014. So somebody has won that series, just to kind of highlight how competitive the games inside the division have been. Even when Washington hasn't been all that good, there's been times where you've struggled with them. New York, you've seen to dominate, and then they finally beat you once last year, even when you were the better team. Dallas, so it doesn't matter if sometimes you're the better team. You stub your toe against these teams inside this division. It seems to happen a lot.
Listen, my favorite stat, and I brought it up during our NFC East Outlook series, and I bring this up all the time, and I think it's one of the most under-discussed crazy phenomenons in sports, is that no team has repeated as division champion of the NFC East since the 2003-2004 Eagles. We are now going on 18 seasons, all right? So the past 17 seasons, there has not been a duplicate winner. Think about who you were 17 years ago, Mike Gill. I mean, that's a long – we're almost talking about 2 decades before this division has had a champion 2 years in a row. That's really hard. For some people, the Andy Reid era feels like yesterday. It does for me. But when you think about how long that's really been, 17 years – to me, that's just amazing. And that just shows you this division and how, yes, there have been some strong teams. And yes, there have been some Super Bowl winners in that time, the Giants twice and the Eagles once. But it's not been a division that you've seen like that has a Chiefs that's going to win it 3 out of 4 years, or the Packers. I mean, it's totally anyone's division every year. And that's because, like you're saying, it's not easy to just sweep the whole division. No matter how good or bad the teams are, every game winds up being pretty not every game, but a lot of games really wind up being close, and you'll see that upset like you saw last year when the Giants beat the Eagles.
Yeah, now the Eagles won 9 games last year, and it's admirable that they won 9 games because we didn't think that was a 9-win team.
Right.
What would you say? Like when you were coming on, I was saying how many of those 9 games were you like they won that game because Hurts played really well? Like what percentage or what factor impact did Hurts have in them being a 9-win team?
It's a good question. I think games that stand out where I thought Hurts really played well, and probably 2 of the more impressive wins of the year, were the game at Denver. I thought that was an excellent game that he played. He had not a great second half, but you'd probably be, apprehensive to find a game where he was great from start to finish last year, which is, obviously consistency is something he has to work on. But he really did play well in that Denver game, given the history of the Eagles going out to Denver, and I don't think they had no time. And I thought he played really well in the New Orleans game as well. I know his home game, they were just starting to open up the offense a little bit from a downhill running scheme to a quarterback read option or zone read type running scheme. And I thought, made some really good plays, both offensive, both with his arm and running the ball. So those 2 games kind of jump out at me as games where I thought Jalen really showed some development and, in a tough environment. I know the Broncos weren't a great team, but again, going out and winning in Denver is not easy. And he made some really nice throws in that game.
Right, that, and of course the Atlanta game. I mean, the first game of the season, people were going out and buying his jersey.
Well, yeah. I think that was a little bit of. I always say week 1 is a little bit of fool's gold, whether you win or lose. There are some wacky upsets every year in week 1 too that never really hold the line. But yeah, he did play well in that game.
Right, that was he was 27 of 35, 77% completions, 264 yards, 3 touchdowns. He ran 7 times for 62 yards. And, at the end of the day, we were talking about what his ceiling is. That was really the question. What is the ceiling of the team with him? And my answer really was, I think you can win a lot of games. I don't know what that gets you, but I think you can win if he's in the right situation. If you're going to ask him to throw the ball 55 times a game, no, probably not. But if he's throwing 25 to 30, you probably can win more than you lose with Jalen Hurts.
I think that's fair. I think that's probably similar to the conversations that the Raiders have with Derek Carr, who to me is a better thrower of the football than Jalen Hurts, which I would say makes him right now a better quarterback than Jalen Hurts, but still one of those guys that's not in your top 10. If you're making a top 10 to 12, Derek Carr is probably not on that list. So the Raiders probably have that kind of conversation, and probably the same kind of conversations that are going on in New Orleans about Jameis Winston, where they're still trying to build a really good team. I mean, they went and traded a first-round pick, and, they drafted the receiver from Ohio State, and they drafted a tackle, and I think they've added some people in free agency. They added Marcus Williams, and no, they lost Marcus Williams. They added Tyrann Mathieu. They added Marcus May. So they're clearly sort of doing what the Eagles are doing too, right? They're saying, we don't know if we have a top 10 quarterback here, but we're going to build a really good team and hope he can help us.
Well, and this goes to, that list that came out the other day of the executives from ESPN that, execs, coaches, players that everybody's been debating on. I said, I don't care if Lamar Jackson's 9, 10, 8, 5, honorable mention. I think what this list shows you is that there's a lack of talent at that spot. Like, so this, everybody's looking for this franchise quarterback, and I would say he doesn't exist. So at some point you have to be, I don't want to say satisfied with what you have. You should always strive to find better. But sometimes the answer isn't there. You just can't do it just to do it. And I feel like San Francisco put themselves in that spot where they just did something just to do it. And I don't know that they got the right answer, but they weren't satisfied with Garoppolo, so they did something, and now they're in this position. And I think Philadelphia is going to have to make that decision at the end of this year.
Yeah, and I see what San Francisco did as more of a methodical and smart plan. If they knew that they could only get so far with Jimmy Garoppolo, and that is making it to a conference championship or losing a Super Bowl, and they could get a quarterback who they believe can be 20% better than Jimmy Garoppolo just because he's A, either more athletic, or B, has a stronger arm and can drive the ball down the field, then it makes sense because you don't expect yourself to be picking in the top 5 when you're a pretty good team like the 49ers have been. So you kind of maneuver like the Eagles have been doing as well to put yourself in position to get one if you need one. You're right that the top 10 list really reflects that, only 30% of the league can say we've got a guy that we think or we're almost positive can win us a Super Bowl because he's that special, because 10 out of 32 isn't so great. So I guess to your point is, if you don't have one of those guys, you try to build up the best possible team and also equip yourself with some assets so that if you need to make a move at the quarterback position the following year, that person can kind of come into a good environment. You're not blowing everything up and starting all over.
Talking with Geoff Mosher, Football at 4 here on the Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. And, another big part of this is how is this offense going to look, right? Are they going to change this more? Because one of the things we talked about was they threw the ball a lot the first half of the year. I mean, you look at his attempts, 35, 39, 48, 37, 26, 34, and then 14, 17, 23. Obviously, they took a downward turn there. Now, just getting A.J. Brown, I don't know, do they say, hey, we got to throw the ball 10 times more? Or do they keep the offense the same and just say, hey, if we only throw it 25 times, those plays are going to be made that weren't made in the 25 times we threw it last year. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I don't think that first of all, everybody sees what you do. Everybody catches up to what you do. You can't be a static team in the NFL. And when what you're doing is basic, which is running the ball, people are going to catch on to that even faster. Even, not just teams like Tampa Bay, but even any team that you play. The Eagles went not only and traded for A.J. Brown, but they paid him a lot of money. They paid Dallas Goedert money last year, to one of the top 5 tight ends from a paycheck standpoint. They have to throw the ball better, not just because they're paying guys and upgrade it, because they believe that's the only way they're going to truly be considered one of the 4 to 5 best teams in the NFL. They know that doing what they did last year was a tourniquet, not a recipe to winning Super Bowls. So if they did feel it was a recipe to winning Super Bowls, they probably wouldn't have gone out and got A.J. Brown. So they know they've got to pass the ball better. They have to pass the ball more, and they've got to be able to drive the ball and score touchdowns through the air. There's no doubt about it.
Oh, listen, I certainly agree with the fact that they got to throw the ball a little bit more, but I don't think they need to be a team that throws it 35, 40 times, right?
Disagree. I think they do if they want to win Super Bowls. Now, when you say 35 to 40, it depends. They have to throw the ball, in my opinion, the way good passing teams do in the first half. Now, if they have 14, 15, 16-point leads going into the fourth, you want to then give the ball to your running backs and run out that clock, and then you wind up only throwing like 35 to 38 passes. That's fine, too. Or using Jalen Hurts in the RPO game or even in the read option game and having him run a little bit, maybe not as much as last year, peak Jalen Hurts, but still, that's fine. I can understand that. But I do think that they have to be able to complete a high percentage of their passes and throw more than 30 times a game.
He's Geoff Mosher. It's InsideTheBirds.com is where you can find his work. Listen to the Inside the Birds podcast. And tomorrow, Andrew's back with the NFC North. We kind of got sidetracked last week when Andrew was out. So it'll be the NFC North. And then Adam's back on Friday. We're getting a week closer to training camp. July 26th is when Eagles camp opens, and we'll be all over that here on the Sports House, although I won't be here for the start of Eagles training camp. So, God bless y'all. You guys enjoy.
I guess we'll have to make do.
You guys enjoy training camp without me, okay? All right, Geoff Mosher.
We'll have to figure out how to do that, Mike. I'm sure
you guys will be okay.
We'll powwow and figure it all out, yeah.
All right, man. Take care.
See you, man.
All right, Geoff Mosher here from InsideTheBirds.com. Yes, training camp is July 26th, and, of course, we'll have all the coverage here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.